Xiaozhan and I were both reborn. In our previous life, we were a renowned divine couple in the capital city. He was a talented man, and I was a beautiful woman, and we lived in perfect harmony. Looking back on my life, it was nothing short of perfect. My husband treated me with the utmost respect. Our eldest son held the highest position in the court, and our daughter became the empress. I was granted the title of first-ranked lady by the emperor and enjoyed a life of unparalleled wealth and honor. In this life, we have been reborn. Xiaozhan remains the same cold and indifferent man, as pure as the moon in the sky, the most outstanding young gentleman in the realm. I no longer harbor foolish hopes, striving to pluck the moon from the heavens. I no longer go to great lengths to please him. I no longer tempt him. Xiaozhan and I. In this life, we should never meet again, and from now on, our paths will never cross. In my previous life, my marriage to Xiaozhan was something I had carefully plotted and orchestrated. My aunt was the second wife of the duke's mansion. After my mother passed away, my aunt took me into the mansion and raised me as her own daughter. She had no children of her own, so she loved me dearly. The servants in the mansion appeared respectful on the surface, but behind her back, they mocked her. They whispered that she had brought a poor relative into the duke's mansion to leech off the family, and that the daughter of a merchant was unworthy of such a noble household. My aunt had a weak personality. After marrying into the duke's mansion for over a decade, she still felt like a rootless floating weed. She had no authority over the household and no one to support her. Whenever trouble arose, she would hide away and cry in secret. My aunt and I were completely different in temperament. I had always been competitive and ambitious, willing to fight for what I wanted. The moment I saw Xiaozhan, my chaotic heartbeat told me, I wanted him. But who was Xiaozhan? He was the eldest son of the duke's mansion, as noble as a bamboo grove. He was the most outstanding young man in the world, as bright as the moon in the sky, cold and indifferent, a gentleman of the highest caliber. How could a girl from a merchant family like me ever hope to be with him? The noble ladies of the capital mocked me, calling me shameless and delusional. Everyone said I was unworthy, but I insisted on him. Xiaozhan eventually married me. At a banquet, he was ambushed by villains and poisoned with a deadly potion. I volunteered to lie with him to help him detoxify. That night, he was incredibly gentle. Even though he was poisoned, he forced himself to endure and restrain his desires. He caressed my ears and prioritized my feelings. When I cried out in pain, his eyes turned crimson, and he closed them tightly, yet managed to stop himself. Don't cry. Don't cry. He gently kissed away my tears. I nearly drowned in the unfamiliar waves of emotion Xiaozhan had stirred within me. After the passionate embrace, Xiaozhan finally came to his senses. When he saw me covered in bruises, he froze in shock. He quickly turned away. I have defiled my cousin's purity. I will take full responsibility. Tomorrow, I will send someone to the Jiang family to propose marriage. He was a gentleman. The matter was already decided. He had no choice but to marry me. After the wedding, Xiaozhan remained indifferent and solemn. The Xiaozhan I received was a cold, icy shell. Toward me, he was always cold, distant, indifferent, and calm. It doesn't matter. If the mountain won't come to me, I'll go to the mountain. With my relentless persistence, we gradually began to resemble a divine couple. For instance, when I played the zither, he would accompany me on the flute. Or when we played chess, he would tolerate me retracting my moves time and again. Xiaozhan did not take concubines or concubines. Everyone envied my good fortune. They say I married the best man in the world, so deeply devoted to his wife. I merely smiled at such words. Looking back on my life, not only did I marry Xiaozhan as I wished, But I also raised 2 outstanding children. I was also granted the title of first-ranked lady by the emperor, enjoying all the honors and wealth of the world. Life seemed to be complete. Until my final moments. I looked into Xie Zhan's eyes, which had remained calm and unchanging for decades. Without thinking, I asked, Xie Zhan, have you ever felt even a moment of love for me? Xie Zhan remained silent. I smiled and closed my eyes. As I lay dying, it felt as though I had returned to our wedding night. Xie Zhan did not return for a long time. I lifted the veil myself and searched all the way to the study, where I found Xie Zhan drunk to the point of unconsciousness. He was lying face down on the desk. His brows were slightly furrowed, his cheeks flushed, and his eyelashes trembled slightly, giving him a broken appearance. On the desk lay a painting of a beauty sleeping amidst spring peonies. The ink was still wet, clearly freshly painted. Though the beauty was only shown from behind, I recognized her at once. It was the future crown princess, Xin Yunli, the eldest daughter of the prime minister's mansion. The moonlight shone through the window, casting a soft glow on the new painting, every stroke brimming with love. I suppressed the flood of emotions surging within me. I quietly left the study. I pretended I had never been there, never seen it. Back then, I was young and headstrong, unwilling to turn back until I hit a wall. If there is a next life, I will live a different life. I will no longer be a fool, chasing after the moon in the sky. I will no longer go to great lengths to please Xie Zhan. I will no longer tempt him. Xie Zhan and I. In the next life, we should never meet again, and our paths should never cross. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn on the night Xie Zhan was given the poison. At that moment, I was straddling Xie Zhan's waist. My robe was half unbuttoned, revealing my fragrant shoulder, and Xie Zhan's hands, which had spent years holding a brush and playing the zither, were wrapped around my waist. His fingers were long and slender, with prominent knuckles, and the veins on the back of his hands were bulging. The pressure on my waist alternated between light and heavy. I couldn't tell if he wanted to hold me tighter or let go. I froze for a moment. Then I snapped out of it and pushed him away. This can't happen, I said, rolling off the bed, pulling my half-open robe back into place, and covering my chest tightly. Xie Zhan leaned against the bed. His face was flushed, his black hair cascading down, his clothes disheveled. Having shed his cold and dignified exterior, he looked like a seductive demon in the night, his entire being radiating an astonishing beauty. His dark eyes were hazy, gazing at me with a low, hoarse voice. We are husband and wife. Why can't we? My heart trembled slightly. I immediately realized that Xie Zhan must have also been reborn. But I had already sworn, if there is a next life, I will stay far away from Xie Zhan. Thinking of this, I raised my eyes to look at him, tears welling up in my eyes. My cousin and I are unmarried. So how can we be husband and wife? I know you have always looked down on me. So why humiliate me like this? Hearing this, Xie Zhan's dazed eyes gradually cleared. He first looked around, then met my tearful gaze and furrowed his brow slightly. I'm sorry, but I couldn't bear to hear another word. I abruptly interrupted him. Cousin, rest assured, I will never bother you again. After saying this, I ran away, running into the night breeze. I made my way to the lakeside, using the clear lake surface to tidy myself up. I made sure everything was in order, as if nothing had happened, and returned to the banquet hall. My aunt took my slightly cold hand. You've been gone so long? Your hands are frozen. Are you cold? I gave her a sweet smile. Auntie, I'm not cold. I'm very happy. My aunt smiled as well. That night, Xie Zhan did not return to the banquet. The next morning, my aunt and I were having breakfast. Someone from Xiaozhan's entourage came to report. They said that the young master was ill and could not come to pay his respects to the lady, and asked for her forgiveness. Xiaozhan was a gentleman, disciplined and courteous. Though she was my stepmother, she treated me with proper respect. My aunt put down her chopsticks and asked with concern, "Why did he suddenly fall ill? Have you called a doctor?" The servant Emochi glanced at me. I pretended not to hear and continued to drink the old duck soup. Emochi replied respectfully. He said that he had drunk some wine at a banquet last night and accidentally slipped and fell into the lake. The lake water in early spring was icy cold. Even the healthiest person couldn't withstand such ordeal. He came back last night with a high fever, and it hasn't gone down yet. My aunt was very worried and immediately got up to go see Xiaozhan. She had already reached the door. Emochi suddenly asked, "Auntie, aren't you going to go see the young master?" Auntie realized what he meant and turned to look at me. "Yes. Zeng Zeng, you're always chasing after your cousin. Why aren't you going with them today?" I put down my spoon. "I'm not going. Auntie, please tell my cousin I said hello," I said solemnly. "In the past, I was young and ignorant. I won't bother my cousin anymore. Xiaozhan has been ill for a long time, and I haven't visited him once. I even sent away the teachers who taught me to play the zither and chess. In my previous life, I tore myself apart, ground myself into dust, and molded myself into the shape Xiaozhan liked. He loved playing the zither, so I practiced diligently, hoping he would glance back at me. He liked playing chess, so I sought out a master, studied the chess manuals, all to spend more time with him when we played. Xiaozhan doesn't know. In truth, I neither love playing the zither nor enjoy playing chess. This time, I will be the true Jiang Wenjing." I told my aunt that I wanted to move out of the Duke's mansion. Since we were going to be apart, we might as well not live under the same roof as Xiaozhan anymore. My aunt held my hand and cried. I had been living in the Duke's mansion since I was 10, and it had been 5 years. During those 5 years, I had been with my aunt day and night, and she was deeply reluctant to let me go. "Xingxin, have you heard that Zhaner is to be betrothed to the eldest daughter of the Prime Minister's family?" I was taken aback. It felt both sudden and inevitable. Even I wanted to change my life. Xiaozhan would naturally want to make up for the regrets of his past life. But I was still a bit confused. Isn't Miss Shen the one the Emperor has already designated as the Crown Prince's fiancée? My aunt explained. When the Emperor arranged the engagement for the Crown Prince, he did not specify which Miss Shen it would be. The Shen family has another daughter besides Shen Yunli, but she is very low-key and few people know about her. If Shen Yunli were to marry Zhaner, the Shen family would likely send the second daughter to the Eastern Palace. The news of the arranged marriage hadn't spread yet. I only heard about it by chance when the Duke mentioned it last time. I nodded, feeling a great weight lifted from my shoulders. The chaotic marriage from my previous life could finally be corrected in this one. All I had to do was wait half a month for Wu Jin to arrive in the capital. Then I could move out. New rumors began circulating in the mansion. They said I had tried to seduce the young master but failed, and now I was using the tactic of feigning disinterest to lure him in. The two maids were discussing this in the backyard while I was organizing books in the library. Back then, I did it to please Xiaozhan. These are all rare editions I spent a fortune to collect. I plan to take them with me when I leave the Duke's mansion. As I was organizing them, I overheard the gossip from downstairs. Jiang girl has come up with a new trick. She pursued the young master so fiercely before, but now that he's ill, she doesn't even bother with him. She's just trying to keep him hanging on. A courtesan is a courtesan. She uses nothing but the sleazy tricks of the brothel. No matter how many tricks she uses, the young master won't like her. Her figure is too provocative, and her appearance is too vulgar. She doesn't look like a proper lady from a distinguished family. I didn't bother to pay attention, just ignoring it like a dog barking. But then I heard a familiar voice scolding. "How dare you?" The voice was cold and clear, as if it contained ice and snow. I peered down. After falling ill, Xiaozhan looked much thinner. He wore a moon-white robe, and when the wind blew, his ribs were visible. Beside him stood a woman of unworldly beauty. It was Xin Yunli, the daughter of the prime minister. Two young maids were so frightened that their faces turned as white as paper. They knelt down with a thud and bowed their heads. "Please forgive us, young master. We have made a mistake." Xiaozhan's expression was stern. "Half a month's salary as punishment, and then go to Manager Meng to receive 10 lashes. After the maids retreated, weeping and sobbing, Xin Yunli looked at Xiaozhan in confusion. "Why is Brother Zhan so angry? It's just a minor matter. The servants were merely gossiping. Why such a severe punishment?" She and Xiaozhan had been childhood sweethearts. They were very close, with an intimacy that others couldn't intrude upon. Xiaozhan lowered his eyebrows and said casually, "The servants in the mansion were becoming increasingly undisciplined. A severe punishment was necessary to set an example." A fleeting shadow of anger flashed in Xin Yunli's eyes, but she quickly smiled and said teasingly, "You speak so nobly, but isn't it just to protect Miss Jiang?" "Ah, Miss Jiang is truly formidable." Xiaozhan lowered his eyes to look at her, his dark eyes hiding a hint of indulgence and pampering. "I am not protecting my cousin. Even if it were someone else, I would have handled it the same way." Xin Yunli wrinkled her nose and said coquettishly, all right, Mr. Xia is a gentleman of noble character. I was just judging you with a petty mind. Xiaozhan once punished my servant severely for me. At the time, I had just married him, and the servants looked down on me for my merchant background, secretly sabotaging me. They had the servants left behind by Xiaozhan's biological mother. Some were Xiaozhan's wet nurses. They were all elderly servants with status and dignity in the duke's mansion. I had planned to endure it first and then take action gradually. But when Xiaozhan found out, he expelled them all from the duke's mansion and sent them to the countryside. The old duke was furious. He was deeply in love with Xiaozhan's mother and had always indulged the servants she had left behind. My aunt was the woman he had chosen as a substitute for his first wife. In a way, those servants were also substitutes for the first wife. In the end, Xiaozhan was punished to kneel in the ancestral hall for 7 days and 7 nights to reflect on his actions. I sneaked to the ancestral hall in the middle of the night to kneel with him. Xiaozhan tried to drive me away, but I squeezed myself beside him and refused to let go. I wouldn't leave. The trouble was caused by me. And besides, we were husband and wife. We should share the hardship together. Xiaozhan's voice was distant and cold. It has nothing to do with you. They acted arrogantly and deserved to be punished long ago. Every word was meant to distance himself from me. I bit my lip and smiled, feeling overjoyed inside. After all, Xiaozhan didn't deal with them earlier or later. As soon as the servants offended me, he immediately dealt with them. Yet he insisted it had nothing to do with me. I didn't believe him. I knelt willingly, but soon my legs went numb like needles pricking me. I secretly shifted from kneeling to sitting, then from sitting to lying down, and finally curled up on the cushion and fell into a deep sleep. I slept until dawn. I found myself covered by Xiaozhan's outer robe, which had a faint scent of ink. Xiaozhan was only wearing a thin robe. He was still kneeling, his back straight and upright, his posture impeccable, like a bamboo shoot. It was early winter, and the ancestral hall was cold and damp. Xiaozhan had given me his outer robe, catching a severe cold himself and falling seriously ill. Watching him feverishly burning with a flushed face, I nearly hated myself for having fallen asleep in the ancestral hall. I cried hysterically at his bedside. He looked down at me with a calm expression. If one of us must fall ill, let it be me. After all, I am your husband. I turned those words over and over in my mind. I forced myself to find a hint of sweetness in them. The tears on my face had not yet dried, but my heart was already filled with confusion. Xiaozhan must have some feelings for me, right? Why else would he drive away my mother's attendant to assert his authority over me? Why else would he willingly take off his outer garment for me and endure his own illness without waking me? It took me half my life to understand. Xiaozhan's feelings for me have never been about love, but about character. He is a good man. He just doesn't love me. Aren't you looking for a rare book? Let's go. As they spoke, they entered the library. I didn't want to run into them. I stayed in the attic, waiting for them to finish looking for the book and leave. Unexpectedly, the two of them searched downstairs for a while. Soon, they came back up the wooden stairs to the attic. The attic was small. There was nothing to hide, so I didn't bother hiding. They bumped into each other. Their eyes met, and Xiaozhan's cold gaze darkened. Xin Yinli exclaimed in surprise. Miss Jiang is in the attic? Good thing I didn't say anything bad about you earlier with Zhan. As she spoke, she glanced up and down at me a few times. Her expression filled with a smile. It seems that rumors aren't always untrue. Miss Jiang is dressed quite vibrantly today. Indeed different from usual. Even I find her quite charming. The noble women of the capital city speak with hidden meanings, always insinuating something. First, they mocked me for eavesdropping. Then they mocked my flashy attire. But I didn't take it to heart. Responding indifferently, I can't compare to Miss Shin's noble elegance and grace. In my previous life, to please Xiaozhan's upright and proper demeanor, I rarely wore makeup. My jewelry and hairpins were all made of jade, and my clothes were simple and understated. But today, I'm wearing a red dress. My lips are painted with vibrant lipstick, and my hair is adorned with a sparkling golden hairpin. Dressed like this, it's as if I'm trying to seduce someone. But this is the real me. I love vibrant dresses, beautiful cosmetics, and dazzling jewelry. In the past, I even despised that vulgar version of myself. I once tried countless times to transform myself into the refined and graceful Lady Xin Yinli. But now, I feel that I am perfect just the way I am. I no longer wish to live my life as someone else. After struggling with myself for so long, I choose to be myself. I carried the box I had just packed and prepared to go downstairs. Xiaozhan glanced at the box in my hands and suddenly spoke. Where is my cousin taking all these books? I didn't want to cause any trouble. Reading books to pass the time. Xiaozhan stared intently into my eyes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The attic fell suddenly silent. Xin Yinli curved her eyebrows and smiled, breaking the dead silence in the room. Can Miss Jiang really read all these books? Perhaps you should leave them for someone who truly loves books. Her eyes lit up, and she took the top book, looking at Xiaozhan with a delighted expression. Zhang Gu, this is exactly the book I was looking for, the rare edition of the Pharmacopoeia. A surge of anger welled up in my heart, and I spoke stiffly. Taking something without asking is theft. Please return Miss Shin's book to me. Xin Yinli's eyes instantly filled with tears, which threatened to spill over. Xiaozhan's brows furrowed, his voice icy. Cousin, you're being too harsh. I thought I had grown numb, but Xiaozhan's cold tone still stung me. I abruptly looked away. He seemed to realize he had spoken too harshly and softened his tone. Negotiating with me. You can't possibly finish all of this in one go. Could you let Yunli have the book first while you read something else? The once aloof Xie Gongzi would actually beg for someone he cared about. I murmured in a daze. What if I insist on reading this one first? Xiaozhan didn't hear clearly and furrowed his brows before asking again. Cousin? I looked into Xiaozhan's dark, cold eyes, and finally understood. All right. I'll do as my cousin says. The news that the Xianxian families were discussing a marriage alliance spread throughout the capital. Once again, I became the topic of everyone's gossip. People laughed at me for being a toad trying to eat swan meat, for chasing after something unattainable. While the capital was abuzz with the news, Wu Jin arrived in the capital ahead of schedule. I went to see the new house he had bought first. By the time I returned, it was already late. At the gates of the Duke's mansion, we bumped into Xiaizhan. He rode his horse up to the entrance. I happened to be holding Wu Jin's hand as I stepped down from the carriage. Our eyes met. Xiaizhan's gaze was icy, fixated on my hand resting on Wu Jin's arm. I was about to bow to him, but he turned away without expression, handed the reins to the servant at the gate, and strode into the mansion. Wu Jin snorted derisively. What are you pretending to be? The so-called first gentleman of the world? I'm the first great merchant of the world. After saying that, he turned his head and smiled at me again. His features were handsome and delicate, with a touch of youthfulness in his brows. When he smiled, he was full of vitality. Thank goodness my sister has come to her senses. Such a person isn't worth her time. Unlike me, who only cares about her. I felt a headache coming on. Wu Jin was adopted by my parents. He is half a year younger than me, so he is technically my younger brother. But he doesn't want to be my brother at all. I still remember when he first came to our house. He told my parents that when he grew up, he wanted to marry me. My parents were quite unconventional in their ways. They foolishly agreed, saying they would support him if he could convince me. In my previous life, every time Wu Jin saw Xiaizhan, he would scold him, and whenever Xiaizhan saw Wu Jin, his expression would grow even more grim than usual. The two of them were like oil and water. After bidding farewell to Wu Jin, I walked through the corridor, stepping onto the cobblestone path, and stopped just before reaching the courtyard gate. Under the magnolia tree not far away stood a tall figure. Xiaizhan slowly emerged from the shadows. The moonlight poured down on him like water, making him look like a fallen immortal. Xiaizhan's gaze was cold as he stared at me in silence for a long time. So long that I was about to make an excuse to leave when he finally spoke indifferently. Wu Jin is a man of great depth, cunning and treacherous. He is not a good man. I was taken aback. I didn't expect him to misunderstand me and Wu Jin. I didn't want to explain further, so I replied calmly. Wu Jin is a good man. At least he is sincere toward me. Xiaizhan's face paled. It's getting late. Cousin, you should go back and rest early, I said indifferently, then started to walk back to my courtyard. As we passed each other, Xiaizhan suddenly grabbed my wrist, gripping it tightly, causing my wrist to hurt. Zheng, don't choose Wu Jin. I turned around and looked at his hand holding mine. Cousin, you're overstepping your bounds. He didn't let go of my hand, his eyes reddening slightly as he spoke in a restrained tone. Though nothing happened that night, we've already shared physical intimacy. I should take responsibility for you. Zheng, will you marry me? The same promise as in my previous life, to take responsibility for me. To marry me. But I no longer need that. I will take responsibility for my own life. I reminded him word for word. Cousin, you are already engaged to Miss Shin. Xiaizhan snapped out of his daze, his lips trembling, but he couldn't say a word. He could only slowly and helplessly let go of my hand. The next morning, I went to bid farewell to my aunt. My belongings were already packed into the carriage, and Wu Jin was waiting by the side. Seeing me come out, he hurried over, his brows and eyes filled with joy, his eyes sparkling, looking extremely happy. Sister, I prepared your favorite red bean cakes and jujube flour pastries. Li Mama got up early this morning to make them. They're her specialty. Still warm. Hurry up and get in the carriage to eat them. My eyes lit up. And I couldn't help but salivate. I couldn't wait to get in. The carriage was smooth and spacious. Wu Jin opened a beautifully crafted food box. And the sweet aroma of the pastries filled the entire carriage. I took out a piece of red bean cake. As I bit into it, the sweet, soft, and sticky texture exploded in my mouth. The familiar taste almost brought tears to my eyes. I had once made red bean cake for Xiaozhan. I had learned the craft from Li Mama since childhood, mastering 80% of her techniques and putting in 100% effort. The red beans were carefully selected by me, each one round and plump, bright red and full. I chose to send red bean cake because red beans also symbolize longing. That was the most successful batch I had ever made. I happily brought it to Xiaozhan. Coincidentally, he was hosting a poetry gathering, and Xin Yinli was there too. She covered her mouth and laughed. Miss Jiang, why would you give Zhang something like this? You're from Yangzhou. Don't you know that the young masters and ladies of the capital don't eat red bean cake? It's something only commoners eat. Her tone was gentle, but her words were humiliating. The other young men and women all laughed along. Only Xiaozhan didn't laugh. He took the food box from my hands and spoke in a calm tone to save me from embarrassment. Thank you, cousin. I'll try it tonight. Later, when I went to look for him again, I saw the food box in the corner, covered in a layer of dust. I gently lifted the lid and saw that the red bean cake inside was untouched, dry and shriveled like pickled vegetables. I was like that red bean cake to Xiaozhan. He accepted it out of politeness and upbringing, but had no interest in it. So it ended up in the corner, gathering dust. After that, I never touched red bean cake again and regarded it as a disgrace. But what was wrong with the dessert? The fault lay with those who divided food into different classes. I stuffed it into my mouth desperately, almost choking. Wu Jin gently patted my back and poured me a cup of warm flower tea, looking at me with clear, pure eyes. Take your time, sister. Try this flower tea, it's very refreshing. The warm steam moistened my eyelashes. I hadn't felt the warmth of someone caring for me in a long time. Although my aunt treated me like her own daughter, she was naive and weak, and her life in the Duke's mansion wasn't easy. Most of the time, I was the one protecting her. In my previous life, although Xiaozhan and I were married, he never took the initiative to approach me. He just stood there quietly, waiting for me to strive to come to him step by step. Between us, I was the one who gave everything and kept giving. The sweetness of the red bean cake spread from my tongue and slowly seeped into my heart. I stuffed a piece into Wu Jin's mouth as well. Try some. Wu Jin's eyes crinkled with joy. It's delicious. My sister gave it to me first. The sound of galloping hooves grew louder from the distance. Then our horse neighed in fright. The next moment, the carriage came to an abrupt halt. I almost fell out, but Wu Jin quickly pulled me back. A cold voice came from outside the carriage. Where is my cousin going? I lifted the curtain of the carriage window. Xiaozhan was riding a white stallion, standing beside the carriage, his expression stern as he stared at me. He should be at court at this hour. Why is he here? I didn't want to disturb him by leaving, but now that it's come to this, there's no need to hide anything. Cousin, I must go. Xiaozhan's jaw tightened, and he gripped the reins tightly, his knuckles turning white. Why? The Duke's mansion is not my home. Where is your home? Is Wu Jin's place your home? He is my brother. Brother. Xiaozhan sneered, a fleeting gleam in his eyes. Jiang Wenjin, you're always like this. Always clinging to your own desires. The clear sky suddenly began to rain. A spring breeze arose, and fine rain fell like threads. Xiaozhan's face was covered in droplets. whether from rain or tears. His eyes reddened, and he asked in a trembling voice, Xingxin, you're back too, right? A clap of thunder cracked the sky, but my heart remained calm as water, stirring not a single ripple. Xiaozhan choked back tears, speaking hurriedly and desperately. Xingxin, do you no longer want me? No. What about the children? Do you not want our 2 children either? They will find better homes, with loving parents, and live happily ever after. Xiaozhan's face was pale, and his usual cold expression cracked inch by inch. I remained calm. Xiaozhan, you don't love me. You've just been dependent on me for years. You already betrayed me in your previous life. So don't betray Xinyunli in this life. And don't betray your true feelings either. The rain grew heavier. Xiaozhan stood dazed in the rain, finally forcing a smile after a long while. Take care on your journey, my cousin. If you ever face difficulties, come to the Duke's mansion to find me. I will always be your cousin. The wheels began to roll forward again. Xiaozhan stood by the roadside, watching me depart, and I did not look back. 5 years passed, with spring giving way to autumn. Now I am 20 years old, still unmarried, and considered an old maid who has strayed from the path of propriety. Yet no one in the capital dares to speak of me behind my back or gossip about me. For everyone knows that Miss Jiang has a mad younger brother who protects her fiercely. That brother happens to be the Minister of Justice, a favorite of the Emperor, and a trusted confidant by his side. If anyone dares to speak ill of his sister and he finds out, he will draw his sword and kill them, or at least scare them half to death. The noble women of the capital city have united against me and begun to speak on my behalf. It was all because Miss Jiang had opened a shop in the most prosperous district of the capital city. The jewelry, beautiful dresses, and cosmetics inside were all designed by her personally. Every girl who stepped out of the shop was as beautiful as a fairy, and each one was uniquely stunning. Who wouldn't want to be beautiful? Miss Jiang had become the object of desire for the noble women. The past 5 years had changed so much from my previous life. In my previous life, the crown prince was frail and died less than 2 years after ascending the throne, leaving behind Empress Dowager Xinyunli and a 1-year-old emperor. It was only through Xiaozhan's relentless efforts that they were able to survive. In this life, the crown prince died even earlier, not even surviving to the throne. The princes fought among themselves, and in the end, the second prince, whom the late emperor disliked the most and had been stationed at the border for years, seized the throne. Xiaozhan and Xinyunli never married. Xinyunli was first betrothed to the crown prince, then arranged to marry Xiaozhan, but neither union came to fruition. Rumors began to circulate in the capital, and no one dared to marry her. She, being the first lady of the court, held herself in high esteem and refused to marry anyone else. In the end, she became an old maid, just like me. It was as if we were destined to be rivals. I opened a shop, and she established a girls' school. We both gained fame in our respective fields. One day, I had just finished making a box of rouge when Xinyunli came to visit. It was the first time we had seen each other in 5 years. Xinyunli was still as beautiful as ever, but her demeanor had changed, appearing more composed and gentle. She apologized to me. Miss Jiang, I have always owed you an apology. I once secretly targeted you. In the past, I was shallow and read books merely as a means to gain an advantage. It was only through teaching and nurturing students over the past 5 years that I began to understand some of the principles of life. As she spoke, she bowed deeply to me. I was taken aback, helped her up, and returned the bow. We smiled at each other. All the past grievances seemed to have vanished into thin air. Xinyunli was going on a study abroad trip. She said that reading thousands of books is not as good as traveling thousands of miles. Her 5 years as a female student had made her realize her own shortcomings. She was going to see herself, see the world, and see the heavens and earth. I hugged her. Don't say that the sunset years are late, the sky is still ablaze with clouds. I'll wait for you in the capital city to return safely. On the day she left the capital, there was a strong wind. The wind and sand stung my eyes, and I found myself shedding tears. Wu Jin wiped away my tears, half-jokingly complaining, "Sister is kind to everyone, but she's so harsh with me." He laughed again. The ruthless and unpredictable Grand Secretary of the Ministry of Justice, who could calm a child's nighttime cries with her jade-like face, was always gentle and kind-eyed in front of my sister. But it doesn't matter. I love my sister, and I will always be by her side. My heart felt like it was soaked in honey, sweet to the point of cloying. Over the past 5 years, my numb heart had been warmed back to life by Wu Jin. Bit by bit, it began to beat again, full of vitality, and I finally understood what it felt like to be loved wholeheartedly by someone. I held Wu Jin's hand and went to our parents' grave together. "Do you remember what you said to our parents back then?" Wu Jin seemed to have guessed what I was going to say, his eyes shining brightly. "I don't want to be an adopted son or a younger brother. When I grow up, I want to marry Jiang Wenjing," I said softly with a smile. Then, "Ah Jin, will you marry me?" Wu Jin's eyes suddenly turned red, and he suddenly embraced me tightly, his voice hoarse. "Sister, Jin, I've been waiting for you to say those words for so long. For 2 lifetimes." My heart ached. I hugged him back, tears streaming down my face. I was right after all. Wu Jin had been reborn in this life. In his previous life, he had never married for my sake, willingly helping to manage the Jiang family's estate for his entire life. He died before 30, his body worn out from exhaustion, and after his death, he left all his property to me. On his deathbed, he held my hand and playfully called me sister. "Sister, I'll tell you a secret. I traded the rest of my life to beg the Buddha for another chance at rebirth. In the next life, will you choose me?" I thought it was just a joke. I gradually forgot about it. Until 2 years ago, I suddenly remembered. It turned out that I was able to live another life because Wu Jin had begged for it. Wu Jin and I got married in a grand ceremony with red decorations stretching for miles. Even the emperor sent a gift. Many of the guests had been beaten by Wu Jin. Can you say it now? Wu Jin beat us so badly back then. I could tell he felt something special for Jiang girl. It definitely wasn't sibling love. There's no need to look. Whenever Miss Jiang was around, Wu Yan's eyes were glued to her. Even a blind person could see that. Great. You all saw it but didn't tell me? I was so foolish to express my feelings to Miss Jiang. I said that Wu Yan's gaze felt like he wanted to kill me. Everyone laughed and joked around, but I knew none of this. I sat quietly by the bed, covered in a red veil, waiting for Wu Jin. I knew he wouldn't keep me waiting too long. Sure enough, after a short while, I heard the door creak open, and someone pushed it in. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a bit nervous. "Jin, you're back so soon?" The person didn't answer. I thought Wu Jin was upset by my address, so I suppressed my embarrassment and called out again. "Husband." The person finally moved, turning around and leaving in a hurry. I froze for a moment before realizing that the person earlier wasn't Wu Jin. If I'm not mistaken, it must have been Xia Zhan. Soon, the door opened again, and Wu Jin walked in with light steps. He came to my side and gently lifted my red veil. As our eyes met, his cheeks flushed bright red. "Sister, you're so beautiful." I looked into his clear, gentle eyes, filled with love. Both of us sat dumbly on the edge of the bed, neither moving. I thought that as his sister, it wouldn't be too much to take the initiative. So I gathered my courage and tried to untie Wu Jin's sash. But after fiddling with it for a while, I couldn't figure out how to do it. And cold sweat began to form on my forehead. Wu Jin grabbed my fingers, brought them to his lips, and kissed them, breathing lightly. Sister, please don't touch me anymore. You don't know how hard this is for me. My face flushed bright red, and I dared not move. Wu Jin quickly removed his outer garments, embraced me tenderly, and led me into the red canopy. He kissed me passionately, whispering in my ear, "Sister, you're trembling." I was both angry and ashamed. "Shut up." Wu Jin laughed softly, holding my waist and trapping me in his embrace. "You're so fierce, Jinjin. Don't be afraid, I'll be very gentle. I won't make you uncomfortable." I felt like a dry piece of wood. A single spark would set me ablaze, reducing me to ashes. Or like a fish out of water, desperately searching for a source of water. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves. Inside, the red candles flickered, and the long night passed without sleep.